You won't believe the tangled web of deception my wife has spun since the moment we met, and I mean every single detail of it, from her identity to the events that shaped her life, her infidelities, and even her empty promises of change. I've confronted her on numerous occasions, catching her at her most vulnerable, hoping that she would reveal the truth in the midst of her web of lies. But alas, those confessions turned out to be nothing more than additional layers of falsehood. Now, I don't hold the title of psychiatrist, but I suspect she has a good dose of histrionic personality disorder coursing through her veins, along with a knack for pathological lying. She checks off every damn symptom on the list. Believe me, when I first met her, I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and was looking for a casual fling. Back then, online platforms like Adult Friend Finder were the place to be for quick hookups. Being budget conscious, I searched for her username and eventually found her. I am Handel. We struck up a conversation and decided to meet for lunch a few weeks later. The lunch went well and led to more dates and close encounters. She mentioned that she had a male roommate, but I didn't pay much attention. I had no idea to dig deeper. Lost in my own gullibility, she revealed her previous marriage. Its demise, fueled by her ex's infidelity, left her in a bind, and due to financial constraints, she sought refuge in the company of a roommate. Late one night in the early stages of our relationship, I was having dinner with some colleagues while working on an overnight project. Suddenly my phone rang and I answered to a distraught voice on the other end. It was her, overcome with emotion and seemingly inconsolable. She revealed that she had recently discovered a shocking truth about her upbringing, a truth that shattered the very foundation of her identity. The man she had known as her father, who will be referred to as Italian Dad, was not her biological father. Instead, he was a man with whom her mother had been romantically involved while her real father languished behind bars. Upon her father's release from prison, he was introduced to her as her uncle, while Italian Dad assumed the role of surrogate father. Her real father remained absent from her life. While Italian Dad played the role of the devoted father figure, I was fascinated by this woman. She had a bachelor's degree from the same university I attended, albeit on a different campus, and later earned a master's degree from Columbia University in New York City. After working in her field for some time, she grew tired and moved on to a less demanding job in retail. Our love was strong and genuine. She decided to take birth control pills because it was a more pleasurable experience for both of us. However, our lives took an unexpected turn when she told me that I was going to be a father. I'm a man of loyalty and honor, unwavering in my commitment deep down. I had already made the decision to ask for her hand in marriage. I longed for the perfect moment, a romantic gesture that would sweep her off her feet. But the tides of her pregnancy brought a storm of emotions, and she found herself engulfed in uncontrollable sobs, consumed by fear of me, the weight of her past struggles, and her burdened conscience. As an unmarried mother-to-be, I couldn't bear to see her in such distress. It was then that I realized that waiting for the right time was a luxury we couldn't afford without a ring. In the humble confines of our living room, in the midst of a tear-streaked face, I made my move. It may not have been the grand gesture I had envisioned, but in that moment, it was the lifeline she desperately needed. Our son arrived, breathing life into our world and pushing us to find a new rhythm. It was a whirlwind time, as any new parent knows, but we fought to steal moments for each other. In the chaos of the early stages of our relationship, she immersed herself in an online chat system, a place filled with inappropriate conversations. She confessed that she had been a part of this community for some time and had formed strong relationships there. I understood the need to belong. Since I had my own online tribe, albeit one that did not revolve around inappropriate chats. I trusted her completely and expressed my approval. I even helped her create some steamy avatars that fit the site's theme. Her passion for intimacy was contagious, and it only fueled my desire, so I had no complaints. Desperate to keep my wife happy, I chose silence, feigning ignorance of the things I was noticing. One of the first transgressions occurred a few months after our son's arrival. After a long day at work, I returned home to find her masturbating in our bedroom. Initially, I was struck by a surge of desire, a thought whispering, "Well, this is a pretty steamy surprise time to join the fun. Step closer." I caught a glimpse of her hastily hiding her phone as a deep voice echoed through the receiver. She was engaged in a phone scam with a mysterious man. "Keep your composure." I told myself she was eager, ready for a passionate encounter. "Ignore her." I urged myself to move on, but the memory lingered, etching itself into my mind over the ensuing years, including the present. A series of peculiar phone conversations unfolded. Unbeknownst to her, but not to me, I overheard these clandestine exchanges as she spun captivating tales, weaving intricate alternate lives for herself and our family, and entangling unsuspecting men in her web of fiction. Through a closed door, I caught wind of a fascinating conversation. She was weaving a tale of a widow seeking solace in her family's mountain ski lodge, a respite from the overwhelming burden of burying her husband. Amazingly, this was her norm. Each time, she effortlessly assumed an alternate persona that captivated these men. Sometimes real names were used, sometimes she conjured up fictitious identities. Her stories danced between partial truths and complete fabrications. How she managed to juggle numerous storylines and navigate the complexities from one day to the next, often with multiple people, remains a mystery that boggles the mind. Now let's fast forward to some of the more recent and egregious transgressions within our marriage. 3 years ago, I found myself out of town for the weekend visiting some friends. Normally on these occasions, which happened a few times a year, I'd stay the night because of the late hours and my exhaustion. This time, however, something felt off, like an unsettling itch creeping under my skin. Her behavior and excessive texting, offering unsolicited details of her evening, struck me as odd. She was unusually loquacious about sharing every minute detail of her night. This wasn't her normal self with me, so I knew something was wrong. It was around 1:30 or 2 a.m. When I decided that I had to return home that night. It was only an hour's drive, and a strong cup of coffee would keep me awake. Allow me to share one particular detail she shared with me. According to her, a friend, who I'll call Jane, had come to visit that night. Apparently, Jane had brought some marijuana with the intention of indulging in a smoking session. Let me be clear, I've never tried drugs, nor do I condone illegal substances, and she knows this all too well. In a subsequent text, she informed me that Jane would be spending the night because she was in no condition to drive. It was around 3 a.m. when I arrived home, and to my surprise, there was not a single car in the driveway. A quick glance around the street revealed no parked cars nearby either. Where could Jane's car have gone? I entered the house cautiously, just in case I had missed something or my wife had picked Jane up earlier, expecting to find Jane dozing on the couch. Upon reaching the couch, a disturbing sight caught my eye, an apparent stain resembling dried semen. To add to the confusion, an incessant snoring was coming from the upstairs bedroom. Silently, I climbed the stairs, my instincts driving me forward, driven by a nagging suspicion. And there, lying beside my wife in our own bed, was a complete stranger, a man I had never set eyes on before. The world around me seemed to be crumbling, as if hurtling toward an inevitable end. Seeking comfort, I walked across the hall to my daughter's room. Yes, we had a daughter by then, but both children were spending the weekend with my in-laws, a glaring anomaly. Given my absence, why burden them with the children when they live so far away? Overwhelmed, I sank into a chair and buried my face in my hands, lost in contemplation for what must have been at least 30 minutes or more, grappling with the weighty decision of what to do next. Despite my initial calm, I realized that staying calm was no longer an option. Determined, I stormed into the bedroom, turned on the light, and landed a powerful blow on the intruder's head. With all my strength, the blow was so hard that my wedding ring flew off my hand, leaving me to wonder if it had any meaning. I grabbed him by the legs. I dragged him out of my bed and vehemently ordered him to leave my house immediately. I'll spare you some of the details, but in retrospect, I don't think he knew she was married. His genuine surprise at my presence was unmistakable. To make matters worse, he hadn't driven to our house, so there was no other car. Reluctantly, I had no choice but to let my wife drive him home. My mind was clouded at that moment, for I should have insisted. He could have walked or taken a taxi. Instead, upon her return, we sat in the kitchen and talked until dawn. She adamantly swore that nothing untoward had happened, insisting that they had simply indulged in getting high and dozed off. The perplexing aspect was that I had not caught her in the act. I had no concrete evidence to support my suspicions. Oddly enough, the stain on the couch vanished into thin air as I drifted off to sleep later that day. In addition, a photo of us from our honeymoon, which I had noticed was missing from our refrigerator, mysteriously reappeared. Even before this incident, my mind was filled with doubts about her. There were certain aspects of her life that I had refrained from discussing, deeming them unimportant and unworthy of creating conflict. However, it had come to the point where I had to confront her directly, seeking nothing but the unvarnished truth. One trivial matter that had bothered me was the high school she claimed to have attended. She had always claimed to have attended a particular Catholic school in her hometown, but I couldn't find a shred of evidence to support this claim. In fact, I had come to believe that she had attended the public school in the county where she lived, a county notorious for its dismal reputation in the state. I didn't care about the specific school she attended. All I wanted was the truth. She stuck to her story about going to Catholic school. Fine, I thought. Let's not dwell on that. What really bothered me was the mystery surrounding her former roommate. Over the years, I had stumbled across tidbits of information that never quite added up. Oddly enough, these details seemed to fit a little too well with aspects of her ex-husband's life. I mustered up the courage to confront her, explaining that I had a suspicion that roommate wasn't a real person. I believe that roommate is actually your ex-husband and that you were still married. When we met, I think I unwittingly became the other man and unwittingly ended your previous marriage. She vehemently denied this. Of course, she had prepared a story with slight changes, additional elaborations, meticulously covering all the bases. I had nothing more than a gut feeling, no concrete evidence to support my hunch. Eventually, I made the difficult decision to forgive her, convincing myself that for our relationship to survive, and for the sake of our children, I needed to rebuild my trust in her. With our foundation shaken, but not shattered, we moved forward, determined to move on. Months later, I overheard her on the phone, weaving tales of a family vacation in a fictional ski chalet. The absurdity of it all struck me, knowing that she had never skied and that her family was financially strapped. Determined, I confronted her outside our closed bedroom door and demanded that she face the truth. At first, she denied the existence of the call, but as I pressed her with specific details, she couldn't deny her deception any longer. Lying seemed to come effortlessly to her, It was her default defense mechanism. Time passed, and on my birthday I found myself working from home. Coincidentally, she also had the day off, but I couldn't help but notice her relentless texting, a mystery unfolding before me. How did I stumble upon this revelation? She handed me her phone, revealing her inability to hide her tracks effectively. We had separate cell phone accounts, but decided to combine them on one service. Since my carrier offered a better deal, we planned to transfer her number to my account. While we were both home, we took the opportunity to initiate the transfer, which meant that her phone would be temporarily out of service. When I backed up her old phone to preserve her contacts and pictures, I received text messages from an unknown number that was not in her contacts. The porting process took a couple of hours, causing her to become increasingly impatient as she was reluctant to stop talking to the new guy. Once the porting process was complete, a flood of text messages began to arrive, prompting her to respond vigorously, even sending hundreds in a single day. Unaware that my plan didn't include unlimited texting, I discovered the high charges the next day when I reviewed our account usage. When I confronted her, I urged her to stop this costly behavior. It turned out to be another case involving a different man, although the details are blurred in the recurring pattern. Again, I confronted her, and again she promised to stop. 3 more tense months passed, fueling my escalating paranoia. Whenever possible, I secretly checked her phone, sifting through emails, texts, and photos. Among them, I stumbled upon explicit images she never intended for me. In short, if only it were that simple. She went on a lunch date with a man and later met up at a nearby park. A message after their outing revealed her desire for a closer encounter, lamenting the presence of bystanders, which was the breaking point. During a subsequent phone call, I couldn't hide my anger. I stepped out of my office to express my frustration and confronted her about the lunch date and the park rendezvous. Overwhelmed with guilt, she cried, fearing once again the end of our marriage. I relented, my loyalty intact, but I sternly warned her that there would be no more chances. That was the final ultimatum. That last chance lasted about 8 months, or maybe less, considering I caught her in the act. But that almost brings us to the present. Did you know that you can message people on Yelp? Well, she did, and apparently she was chatting with a local there, which is where I stumbled upon her latest mischievous escapades. Soon after she ventured into the realm of Kik Messenger, she even posted on Reddit looking for cake pals, and it didn't take long for her to lure a few people in. While I haven't closely monitored her activity on Kik, I know she's been communicating regularly with at least 2 people, and her messages are far from innocent, just friendly banter. Just the other day, she needed my help with her phone because she was having some problems. In no time, I stumbled across a folder containing a collection of explicit photos and videos she had sent through Kik. However, it was after this revelation that I made the decision to divorce her. Since that fateful night when I unexpectedly found her in bed with another man, forgiveness has remained elusive. She nods relentlessly at me, despite my attempts to convince myself that trust is possible and that her love for me is genuine. Deep down, I knew she would always resort to deception and foster a sense of mistrust. In recent weeks, driven by the accumulation of years of lies, I reached a breaking point. I debated internally, weighing the pros and cons until I finally made a decision. With trepidation, I hit the send button and sent a heartfelt message to my ex-husband via Facebook Messenger. I had no idea if he would even read it, let alone respond. But I needed answers, and he had no interest in deceiving me. To my surprise, within 30 seconds, I received the scene report, and within a few minutes, he responded, admitting that she had probably lied about him and his past. This was the conversation I had been longing for. For the next hour and a half, we had a frank exchange that touched on every aspect. Amazingly, he even expressed a desire to meet in person for further discussion. We engaged in a mutually beneficial conversation that addressed my lingering doubts about her. In his own curiosity about me, I was the unknown other man in her life when I met her. She was still married and living with her husband. As for the so-called roommate, it turned out to be a complete fabrication. I did a thorough public record search on Spokeo and found someone with the same name as the supposed roommate living on the same street as one of my wife's previous addresses. However, her ex-husband had no knowledge of this person, leaving us to wonder if it was simply a bizarre coincidence or a neighbor he had never met. The truth about her father also came to light. The idea of an Italian father was completely fabricated. Those supposed summer trips to Italy never happened. In fact, she only visited Italy once as part of a school trip. Speaking of school, it turns out she went to the public school I suspected all along, and here's the kicker. She's not even Catholic. So where did she disappear to during that time? She claimed to attend Sunday Mass, probably had more dates with random guys, and let's not forget those 2 degrees she bragged about. After catching her with a lunch date guy, I demanded answers to the web of lies she had spun. One truth she reluctantly admitted was that she had no degrees at all. She claimed to have attended both schools, but never graduated from either. However, her ex-husband revealed that she hadn't even attended those schools, just 1 semester at a local college, and that was the extent of it. So even when she tried to confess some truth to me, it was just another set of lies. She pulled the same crap with her ex-husband, repeatedly maxing out his credit cards and leaving them unpaid. Relatedly, she basically drained my 401k through loans and early withdrawals she talked me into. Do I need to go on? It's all a lie. I've only scratched the surface here, but there's no time to go over all the countless transgressions. Let me tell you one more story. It's been told countless times. She claims to have been living in New York City during those days when she was not attending Columbia. According to her, she was in class when the attack happened and witnessed the fear and panic. She also mentioned that she knew interns at the World Trade Center who didn't survive. She even claimed to have worked as an intern at the New York Times and to have shared a byline on a front-page story published the day after the attack, with a bold claim that it was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. Tease. All a web of lies. That ex-husband revealed that they never actually lived in NYC. They may have visited for a few fun weekends, but they never resided there. This is deeply offensive to all New Yorkers who experienced the tragedies of 9/11, and it sickens me to my core. So I've made the difficult decision to divorce my wife. There will be no trial separation. IV. There will be no trial separation. I've given her enough chances to change, but it's had no effect. Counseling won't help either. Since I've reached my breaking point, the trust between us is broken beyond repair. It breaks my heart for the sake of our children, but this is the only way forward. I believe it's the right choice in the long run, but I'm honestly terrified of the storm ahead and the hardships we'll all have to endure. My love for my children is unwavering, and I want nothing but the best for them. So here I am at the end of my sad story, ready to begin the next chapter. Where do I go from here? How do I best navigate this process? Money is tight for me, living paycheck to paycheck, so it would be ideal if we could avoid lawyers. Neither of us can afford one anyway. Will she play dirty when it comes to the children? I can't predict that. The uncertainty is unsettling. Strangely enough, I don't harbor any ill feelings toward her, but I don't want her to be harmed. It may sound strange, but I don't want to fight with her after this is over. I want us to have a mature co-parenting relationship. After I express my desire for a divorce, I need her cooperation to ensure a smooth transition for everyone involved. There are some challenges to consider. We don't have family nearby who can provide immediate support. They are not too far away, but not close enough for us to stay with them if necessary. My wife works from home, so we need to find a way for her to continue working without jeopardizing her job. She currently takes care of dropping off and picking up our kids from school, so any changes in our living arrangements must take into account that a close friend who went through a divorce last year advised me to wait until after the holidays for emotional support. Being alone during the holidays really sucks. Also, it will give me some time to plan things out. Hopefully, I can get your advice on what steps to take next, helpful resources, and ways to support my children during this difficult time. When my parents divorced, I was 19 and was able to handle it as an adult. However, my younger brother, who was only 13 at the time, struggled a lot. Now my own children are 5 and 8, and I'm really worried about how this will affect them. I'm looking for guidance to ensure their well-being.